Help me to reach 2,000 subscribers. I had never been awake at 2:17 a.m. willingly. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, and yet I couldn't sleep. Something about the empty apartment felt heavier than usual, like the shadows themselves were pressing against the walls. My husband, Mark, had told me he'd be at his late-night therapy session. His ritual, his gym therapy, he called it. But tonight, an inexplicable knot of unease twisted in my chest. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake our daughter, and walked toward the living room. The city skyline glimmered through the windows, indifferent to the chaos brewing inside me. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Curiosity overrode caution. Lily enjoyed last night. You'd be surprised how much she knows about him. The world tilted. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen, willing it to be a joke. But a second message arrived. Invoices from last month. Over 12 sessions. Hourly rate applied. I sank into the couch, numb. Lily. Therapist. Gym. All the harmless explanations I had clung to dissolved like smoke in the wind. I felt the slow, corrosive burn of betrayal. I had trusted him, our entire life, built on the fragile scaffolding of love and routine. And here it was, crumbling, quietly and relentlessly. Over the next few days, I observed him with a new lens, one sharpened by suspicion. The way he left abruptly after dinner, always in a hurry. The sudden defensiveness when I asked innocuous questions. I hated myself for noticing, for translating his gestures into guilt, yet my heart couldn't stop mapping the trail of lies. I tried to confront my feelings with reason. Maybe it was truly therapy. Maybe I was overreacting. But the receipts kept arriving, emails from Lily's professional account, detailing hours he supposedly spent in consultation. Each one was a nail in the coffin of my trust. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, yet a part of me clung to denial. One Friday night, Mark announced he had a business dinner. I pretended to be fine, smiling through dinner as he left. But I followed. Not too closely, subtle, careful. My heart pounded as I parked 2 blocks away from the address he gave. Through the window, I saw him, not in some office or therapy room, but in a dimly lit studio, dancing closely with a woman. The realization hit me like a slap. Lily wasn't a therapist. She wasn't even his friend. She was the face of every late-night excuse he had ever used. My hands shook, my chest burned, and for a moment I wanted to leave, to vanish into the night. But I stayed, recording every movement, every whispered word. The physical intimacy, the casual laughter, it wasn't just betrayal. It was a deliberate, practiced deceit that spanned months. When he finally left, I confronted him at the doorstep. He froze, eyes wide with that familiar flash of recognition, the moment a liar knows they've been caught. Mark. Lily. My voice was barely a whisper, shaking with rage and disbelief. He hesitated, searching for words, and I saw the truth in the hesitation. It's not what you think, he stammered. But the warmth of his hand didn't feel familiar anymore. It felt like a stranger's. I needed someone to talk to. Someone who understands. His words were hollow, empty. I wanted to hit him, scream, beg him to explain. But instead, I walked away, leaving the door swinging behind me. Every step I took felt like both punishment and liberation. I realized then that his betrayal wasn't just physical. It was a fracture in the foundation of every shared moment, every quiet laugh, every whispered promise. The next weeks blurred into a tense limbo. I filed for divorce, each signature a bittersweet relief. Friends offered condolences, some whispers of disbelief reaching me like knives. Mark moved out quietly, the apartment feeling like a mausoleum of what once was. I kept every record, every receipt, every photo, not out of vengeance, but to remind myself that denial had ended. I discovered more layers of deceit as I combed through his financials. Extravagant dinners he never mentioned, gifts for someone else under pseudonyms, hotel reservations that didn't align with any business trips. Each revelation peeled back the final layer of his constructed life, revealing a man I barely knew. And yet, despite everything, a small part of me grieved, not for him, but for us. For the version of us that had believed in forever, for the dreams we once shared, for the trust that now lay in ashes. Anger, heartbreak, and relief mingled in a strange cocktail that I sipped daily. Months later, I walked past the gym he had claimed as therapy. The neon lights flickered, a mocking echo of the countless lies he had spun. I didn't enter. I didn't want to see him, didn't want to confront the embodiment of betrayal. Yet I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that truth, as brutal as it was, had liberated me from the shadow he had cast over my life. Mark's betrayal had been meticulous, slow-burning, and emotionally devastating. It had taken time, patience, and courage to see through the fog he created. And now, standing in the remnants of a life that had been ours, I realized that betrayal, while destructive, also illuminates. It exposes weakness, hypocrisy, and the raw, unvarnished truth. I never confronted Lily. I never needed to. She was part of the deception, yes, but the real crime had been the one closest to me. And in the stillness of the apartment, I felt the weight lift. The pain remained, a scar that would always remind me, but so did the clarity. I would rebuild, stronger and wiser, because the truth, no matter how cruel, was the first step toward freedom. I had loved blindly, but now I saw clearly, and that clarity, painful as it was, had its own kind of redemption.